Hello, lovely souls. Welcome back to the Awakening to Your Soul Self podcast. I have Dhylles Victoria here. She is the author of Relentless Invention from breaking point to breakthrough. Her message is all about overcoming life's challenges and turning her pain into power. Welcome, Dhylles.
Thank you for having me, Christina. I appreciate it.
Of course. So I always have all my guests come in and talk about a little bit about themselves and their journey up to this point.
Dhylles Victoria. I am originally from New York City, born in Harlem. I live in Wilmington, North Carolina. I love New York, but it doesn't feel like home to me. I felt like being in New York was very disconnected to myself. So being in Savannah, Georgia, where I lived for a while and now here actually makes me feel connected to myself. That's how I'm able to write books such as Relentless Reinvention. The book is pretty much based on 13 stories of my life, of how I was able to turn trauma into triumph, pain into power, and having consciousness and awareness of who I am, but also looking back into the little girl me, the teenager me, the 20 something me, and all of the things that they were experiencing at the time, and being able to ask them to forgive the grown woman me for things that I did to myself that was not very kind, was not very nice, and how
Mhm.
to be able to connect with them and build a relationship with those parts of myself where they were able to finally feel safe, feel loved, feel seen and heard and protected and understood. It's all part of who I am as a human being, as a woman, as a person.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
So let's talk about your breaking point. What was happening in your life and what did it kind of feel like to be in that point?
I'll give you one example. I almost died in 2011. I had fibroids and they got infected. This was
Ooh,
after I went through a pregnancy. I was pregnant with twins, and for some strange reason, the babies did not develop. It was just an empty sac because the fibroid kept on growing. I kept going back to the doctor thinking, okay, well, they're going to grow, they're going to develop. He had to have a hard conversation with me and say, we're going to have to do a DNC and remove the empty sac from you because there are no babies. That was like really, really hard for me. I went ahead and got the DNC done. That pretty much just affected me in a very, very crucial way where the fibroid got infected. I didn't
yeah.
realize I had an infection until I went to my doctor's office and I was like, something doesn't feel right. I'm having chills. I'm having a fever. He was like, we have to rush you to the hospital because you're having an infection due to the fibroid. I was in the hospital 13 days. The 11th day I woke up, my lips were blue, my whole body was gray. But it had to
Wow.
because the infection grew into my bladder. It was in my heading to my uterus, and the antibiotics that they were using was not working except for one. When that one was working, the fibroid imploded inside of me, and all of
Wow.
the liquid from the infection was seeping out of my body. So they had to rush me into surgery on the 13th day. Yep.
Whoa. Can't even imagine that.
I was pretty much on the deathbed, so to speak, and I was just looking at my life because that was my breaking point to change certain things about myself because I've always been a giver,
Yep.
empathetic, putting people before myself. That's what ended me in the hospital because I was giving, giving, giving to everyone else, but the overflow was not coming back to me. Felt like God, universe, source was like, okay, no, we have to sit you down. We're gonna have to put you through this and we're gonna have to have a conversation with you because ma'am, you cannot be here in these streets helping everybody else and you're sacrificing your being. So when I went through that, I guess the universe wasn't done with me because 3 weeks later, after I was still healing from a myomectomy, which is a removal of fibroids,
Yep.
my ex-husband found me on the floor at home and they had to rush me to the hospital again because my gallbladder was damaged beyond repair. So
Whoa.
if I didn't get that out, I would have died again. Almost died again. When I sat with myself in the hospital for the second time, I'm like, what is it that you're doing to you that's causing
Mhm.
these things to happen? Because it's about taking accountability and taking
Yes.
responsibility for your actions. It's not necessarily what everyone else is doing, but it's what you're doing. I was like, damn, like I'm not giving back to myself. I'm not pouring into me. I had to learn how to create boundaries, give, but not as so much that you're giving and sacrificing the self. That's the
Yeah.
lesson I learned from that. I wanted to do something more meaningful that what I was doing. So I went and I got my certification as a life coach and I got another certification as a professional mentor because I said to myself, and it was in my spirit, if you're going to help people, charged them,
Yeah. Yeah.
charged. So that was a moment in my life that really was a breaking point in order that turned into a breakthrough.
Okay. Wow, that's an incredible story.
Yep.
That was like such a big a spiritual awakening for you. And I
Mhm.
think sometimes us as empaths have a hard time doing that because we
Yeah, me
want
too.
to help everybody, but we
Yeah.
need to help ourselves in order to help others.
I think the thing for me too, I was a such a consistent watcher of like Joel Osteen and TD Jakes and just different pastors on Sundays. One Sunday after all of this transpired and happens and I was good, I said, let me watch some Joel Osteen and nothing he said resonated with me anymore. Like not nothing. I had
Wow.
no emotions, no feelings. And I told my ex-husband, I'm like, I don't know what's happening to me. Like, I don't feel like the same person. One day I was watching National Geographic. There was a show called Taboo.
Yes.
And I started watching different episodes about Buddhism, Taoism, Hinduism, and certain pieces of what was being said resonated with my spirit. I
Mm.
started adapting and applying those things to my life, and it made me so much more clearer, more conscious and awake and aware of myself. It
Yeah.
actually brought my spirit to life where I felt such freedom from the person I used to be. So when it happened, I'm like, I could never go back to that person. That person no longer exists. And I felt like I went through a rebirth. So even though having a near death experience was very challenging and scary, it was also a gift to me, to myself, because sometimes I'm an Aquarius. So when Aquarius is, we tend to learn things the hard way.
Yeah.
That was a hard lesson for me to learn, but once I got it, I got it.
Wonderful. You
Mm.
touched upon helping others. If that's okay, I'd like to go into that a little bit. How do you help others recognize their own power? Like, kind of like when they're in the middle of all the noise and all the gush.
I think for me, is sharing certain things that I've experienced if they've been through, let's say, for instance, a divorce, and
Mm.
there's a shame and stigma on divorce. Well, they used to be anyway. I would tell people or clients that I'm working with, look, I've been divorced 3 times, twice to a man, one to a woman. And felt in those marriages, they worked for a season. And I learned something from that person, and that person learned something from me. But at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, if your heart and your spirit isn't feeling it, and you're waking up every day next to this person and your heart is heavy and you feel like something's wrong and you know that's not your person, it's
Mhm.
okay for you to say, you know what? We need to separate and part ways because this is not for me.
Yeah.
And feel hard or don't be hard on yourself about it or don't feel like you're a failure or don't feel like, you're never going to find your person. Sometimes you have to allow people to walk out of your life to make space for the person who's supposed to be in your life, not because they're bad people or anything like that, but because there is no true alignment and is being honest with the self about that.
I feel like there are people in life that we have to learn life lessons through. I think there's
Mhm.
seasons of life. I feel like nothing was really an accident. I think
Yep.
every mistake is an opportunity to learn something. And I think it's what the angels are always trying to bring is in the moment it's very hard but you got to think of it as a different perspective in hindsight. I always say hindsight is 2020 because when you're in it, you don't see it, but when you're out of it, you're like, wow,
Yeah, you're like,
that was a
oh,
lesson that I needed to learn.
yeah. And it's like, oh, damn. Okay. Well, that's what it was. And just being able to be at peace with yourself about the decision you made and being
Yes,
able to honor your choice, your power of choice that you have. It's not about anyone else. It's about you at the end of the day because you have to make you happy. You cannot expect another person to make you happy. A person can be an added addition to your life, but ultimately another person is not responsible for your happiness and your peace.
I believe that God, universe, source gave us this gift of free will. So we
Yes.
have choices. They
Hmm.
can guide us and nudge us to certain routes, but we have the free will to say yes or no. All
Absolutely.
kinds of decisions in
Yep.
life.
So pretty much that's what the book is about is 13 different stories of my life and things that were challenging to me and how I was able to turn them into a triumph, into something that is successful within myself, where either it's emotional success, mental, physical, spiritual, not necessarily financial, because I think sometimes people get that. word success misconstrued when it comes to only finances. Success can
100%.
be just you overcoming a fear. I'm a recovering hypochondriac. I used to think everything was wrong with me. I would be at the doctor's office like, "Look at this. Like, what is this?" And he'd be like, "Go home. Go home. There's
Oh,
nothing wrong with you." I would have panic attacks and things like that, but what was happening was I wasn't really sitting with myself. I wasn't reflecting on who I wanted
mhm.
to create myself to be. I was
Yeah,
having these narratives and thoughts about what I went through, and I was reliving the cycle of my past over and over and over again in present time. And until I was able to face myself and go through the process of doing the work, as they say, that's
yeah.
when all of the stuff stops.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Amazing. So in Relentless, Reinvention, you say that it's not just a message, but it's the way you live. Can
Mhm.
you kinda tell us, like, on a daily basis, how do you incorporate that part into your life?
Sure. So pretty much the way that I live now is when I wake up in the morning is operating in gratitude because I just woke up. It is
Mhm.
not taking advantage of breathing, of listening to the heartbeat. It's that for me. It's making sure that I am balancing work and just play and life, spending time with people who I love, spending time with myself, learning how to self-regulate and self-soothe because sometimes we do end up having forms of triggers that take place. So learning how to pay attention to what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling whenever something negative pops up, know how to like recalibrate that in a second. Like, no, this is not, no, we're not doing that today. This is not who we are. Because as human beings, we have a million thoughts per day. Some of them are
Yes.
conscious, some of them are your, subconscious mind or whatever. And it plays a big part in the decisions you make and how you choose to live. So it's paying attention to your mind. So I pay attention to my thoughts every single day. Why am
Yeah.
I thinking this way? Is there something that I need to pay attention to?
Mhm.
Do I need to rest?
Yeah.
Sometimes your body tells you to rest. So that's me with my living. That's how I am and making sure that I am grateful for myself and my existence in this life. Also, like what is the purpose for today? Like who am I supposed to reach out to today? Stuff like that.
100%. Beautifully said. It takes time to rewire your brain because we've lived this way for so long that you just have to kind of repeat yourself.
Yes.
Like that negative thought, "Hey, I acknowledge you, but it's not it
Mhm.
anymore."
Yeah, yeah. It's crazy because one of the chapters in my book is about learning how to drive. I was so afraid of driving because I've been in 2 accidents. I was, I think, 9 years old, and it was New Year's Eve, and my mom and her husband, my stepdad and my sister and a couple of their friends were in a van, and we were going to a party, and we were
Yeah.
trying to go through a stop sign. Another car crashed into us, and the van flipped over.
Ooh,
We're in the van. And when the van crashed onto the ground, there was gasoline everywhere, and my ex-stepfather, he crawled out the van, was in the gasoline, and lit a cigarette. And my mom had to scream at him, right? My mom had to scream at him like, "Put the cigarette out, you dumbass," you know?
yeah, yeah.
Um, so that and my first ex-husband, he was picking me up from the airport because I used to be a flight attendant. He was bringing me back home from training, and we got into an accident, and the car spun. It just spun. I was definitely afraid of driving, and I lived in New York, so you really don't need a car. It's 24-hour
Right.
transportation. But when I reached 40 years old, and that's 9 years ago, I was like, You need to get over this damn fear of driving." I started taking driving classes in New York, but I just couldn't do it. I couldn't drive. I couldn't pass the test. I failed 3 times. I moved to Savannah, Georgia, because my spirit was calling me to move to Savannah. My ex-wife actually taught me how to drive in a way where I can learn it. The first time I took the driving test, I passed it, but I was still having panic about driving
Yeah.
and getting into an accident. There are some times now still where my mind is like, well, you're gonna get into accident, you're going to crash the car off the bridge, you're gonna do this, you're gonna do that while I'm driving. I have to constantly use my muscle memory of my mind to say, no, we're gonna get to where we're gonna get to safe and sound.
Yeah.
We're never getting get to an accident. We trust ourselves. That's constant for me.
Angels are whispering to me is that you could pray, like, do a quick prayer right before you get in the car, like, "Angels, please allow me to get to my destination safely."
I had a
And then
vision the other day of my little girl, and she was so nervous, and she was in the drive in the passenger seat next to me. I told her, "We're gonna get to when we need to get to safely. Buckle up your
mhm.
seatbelt, have your ice cream, and chill."
Ooh, I like that.
Right.
Beautiful. What has your role been with spirituality and the inner work with yourself during this reinvention?
That's interesting because I used to be a practicing priestess, and I would read oracle cards. I'm not really too big on tarot cards. They scare me, honestly.
I don't gravitate to them either.
But I would do a lot of healing for people, like making spiritual baths,
Mm,
soaps, affirmations, spiritual coaching, helping them, and so on and so forth. I had 8 altars in my house. I had altars for grandparents that passed away on my mom's side and my dad's side. I would work with Egyptian goddess Isis,
mm,
Osiris, Horus, Ra, also Oshun once in a blue moon. And I had an uncle on my dad's side because my father's Haitian, and my uncle
uh-huh,
was a voodoo priest. I never met the
mm,
man a day in my life. One day, I was scrolling on Facebook because we have a family tree on Facebook because I was looking to get pictures of my grandparents, and my
mhm,
spirit just told me to keep scrolling. So I scrolled upon this little boy, and I'm like, "Who the hell is this little boy?" And when I
mhm.
clicked it was him as a little boy, him as a grown man, and he died many years ago, and I've never met him. So I called my
Yeah,
dad. I'm like, "Who's such and such? He gives me life at a party. He would smoke, he would drink, but he was fun." And my dad got very quiet. He goes, "She found you." I'm like, "Who's this man?" He said, "Well, he was the voodoo
yeah.
priest of the family."
Oh,
So I had put him on the altar too, and I had like very disciplined, praying all the time, meditating, connecting with the spirit guides. I'm able to hear spirits, see spirits, all that kind of stuff. But lately, probably about now 2 years, I've kind of like stepped away from it
yeah,
because there's a give and take where that's concerned. And I found that I was draining my energy so much because I absorb so much energy from people. And I was very, very, I was conscious of it, but at the same time, it was like I wasn't in discipline when it came to cleansing my spirit and cleansing myself. And at the same time, I just wanted to be a normal person.
yeah.
If I just, it got so tired and draining. I'm like, I'm tired of doing all these cleansings and rituals. I just want to be a normal chick, walk down the street, don't feel anything.
Mm,
I still do connect very much with my grandmother. She's always in my energy and my spirit. She's
beautiful.
helped me out in so many different times of my life after she passed on that it's so beautiful. I actually helped her pass. Like she was in a hospice in Miami and I was living in
Mhm,
Savannah and I just felt the need to sage on her behalf to cleanse her energy and her spirit. I
yeah.
asked on her archangels to come and take her home peacefully because there was so much
Mm,
chaos around her. And an hour
right.
later she passed.
Beautiful.
So I'm very
Mm,
connected to the spirit world, but I'm just
yeah,
like, Imma tread lightly. So
yeah, completely get it.
mhm.
And on top of being an empath, we just absorb everybody's emotions and our energy.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what I've been doing is, in the shower, I'm just like, "Alright,
Yes.
release anything that's not mine. Any
Yes.
energy, just God, universe,
Yes.
source, just take what is not my own energy." Because as an empath, you sometimes you don't realize
So
what you're
much.
picking up.
Mm.
You find that your body's tired, like, for the longest time, I'm like, "I'm so tired all the time." Then it dawned on me, the angels were like, "It's because you're absorbing other people's energy." It kind of feels like you're kind of, like, in a mudslide, you're trying to get out, but you're just
Yes.
surrounded by
I
it. Anybody that's an empath, just at least nightly, just be like, "I wanna release anything that's not mine." You
do the
probably felt
same
the
thing.
exact same thing.
Yes. I do the exact thing in the shower. I felt like I needed to own my spiritual authority, and I needed to own how I'm able to cleanse myself, my chakras, my body, my spirit. So I
Yeah,
own that now proudly and strongly. I do the same thing too when I'm in the shower. I'm like, if any energies I've absorbed, either over the course of today, send it back with love and light and positivity to anyone that I connected with. Send it back to
beautiful,
them.
yeah,
The energy of mine that I've given consciously and subconsciously, I wanted to return to myself with love and light and positive power as well. I close all my
exactly.
chakras and I envision like golden light all around me. And I had a spirit
Mm,
teacher. She taught me this too. She said you would sit down with yourself and then you would open up your root chakra and you would
mhm,
envision all of the gook and negative energy and toxicity coming out of your body and you're sending it all the way down to the middle of the earth. And then you close it. And then you add
Oh,
white light and golden light from the sun to be
yep.
all over your body to recalibrate and regenerate your senses.
Beautiful.
Those are the things that I
Gorgeous.
practice now because I feel like over time, especially if you're a healer, light worker, empath, or
Yep.
whatever, the practices that you've done before no longer works because you become immune to them. You need to have another technique or strategy. And
Yep.
so those are the things now that I do. And I realize I am the talisman. I am the sage. I am the crystals. I'm all of those things. I had to
Yep.
learn how to honor my spiritual authority in that manner.
Beautiful. So I do want to talk about a couple of your other books because you have more than just this one. So you've written, I believe, 3 books and you help others and you have a podcast. You are just everywhere. How did you decide to take all the experiences and the pain that you've created and created this beautiful purpose? I mean, you just have books and you're a life coach, spiritual
Mhm,
coach, and a
mhm.
podcast. How do you do it all, girl?
I've learned to just incorporate everything into one thing because they're all examples of each other. They all piggyback off of each other. Every book I've written is an experience I've had. Pretty much,
Okay.
it's just me sharing my life stories. And I did not allow those situations to define who I am as a person. I always say, I don't look like what I've been through. I don't look like what I've been
Mhm.
through. I'll give you an example. I was a victim's advocate at a domestic violence shelter here in Wilmington. I am also a domestic violence survivor. I was in a narcissistic abusive relationship for a year. I share that story with them like I know exactly how you feel. I was in it too. I was being abused emotionally, mentally, spiritually, financially. When I left that
Mm,
relationship, I had $500 in my name. I had to go no contact with the person I was with so that I don't go back to the same situation because I was with the person for a year and I left and
mm.
came back 7 times.
Wow.
Right. When they see that and I'm like, and I'm an author, I'm a coach, I'm a speaker, I'm a this, I'm a that, and I bring some of my work into the shelter so they can see that not because you're going through the situation right now, this is temporary, but this is
Yeah.
helping you to build yourself up. So take with the information that we're giving you, absorb it, and forgive yourself and let everything go because you can't stay in a space in your mind and in your heart and your spirit of abuse or beating yourself up or have holding the grudge and so on and so forth because it's not going to help you elevate. When I have
Mm,
those conversations with them and I show them my book and I show them what I've been through and how I am now, they're like, well, damn, you don't even look like it. You're so radiant. You're beautiful. You walk around with confidence. I'm like, but you could do that too. What
yeah.
what makes me any different from you? That's why everything all ties in from the books to the podcast to everything that I do. Is every experience I've been through in my life from being sexually abused at 7 years old to almost being raped at 13 to promiscuity. Like I hated my body and I hated myself. So I would just sleep around with everybody. And the analogy that I give is I'm a plate of food sirloin
Mhm.
steak, mashed potatoes, all the yumminess. I put the plate with the food on top of a garbage can lid and I give it to the world and say, here, do what you want to do with me because I don't care about myself.
Oh, okay.
Once I started doing the healing work and facing myself and asking myself for forgiveness, I was able to be like, well, you know what? This is not only meant for me to heal, it's
Yeah.
meant for me to share my stories and for other people to benefit from what I'm saying, for them to say, well, damn, if that happened to her and she's still able to stand up, rise up, talk about it, be strong. What's wrong with me? I can do the same thing too.
Yeah. Beautiful. I think that's what some healers and light workers and empaths, unfortunately have to experience things in
Yeah.
order to step up to their purpose.
Yeah. And it's
And
not
I
it's not easy at all because
know.
when I first started talking about the things that I've been through, my family was so judgmental and so hard on me. Like, I can't believe you're embarrassing us like this. I can't believe you're talking about the family dynamic. I'm like, I didn't even mention you. I'm talking about
Right.
myself, my experiences, and how I was hurt and I was in pain, how I abused myself, and how I gave permission to people to take my power. That's what I'm
Right.
talking about. So it was a lot for me to go through. I had to build up my mind and my heart to be strong enough to say, you know what? This is my journey, my experience, and my purpose. I don't care who you are, but I'm not going to allow you to take that away from me.
Powerful.
Hmm.
Super, super powerful. So, one last question. What do you want somebody to walk away feeling after hearing your story?
That they're great enough, that they are powerful, that despite whatever it is that they've been through or they're going through, they will rise up again, and they have to believe in themselves. They have to trust themselves. They have to trust in their inner knowing, and they have
Mhm.
to honor their spiritual authority. They have to honor who they want to become, not who they performed to be, who they conformed themselves to become, but who in truly inside, and tell themselves the truth. Tell yourself the truth about who you want to be because you have the ability and the potential and the possibility to be you all day, every day.
Yeah,
Also, if there are people in your life that don't like the real you, then those people don't belong in your life anyway. The people who will appreciate and love you unconditionally for who you are, that's your tribe.
yeah,
Sometimes you have to build your own family and your own community. Sometimes that doesn't necessarily mean it's your own blood.
right. Beautiful. I think forgiveness is one of the hardest things,
Yeah.
hardest things. Forgiveness and fear are always, I think, the top two things that
Hmm.
everybody's got to overcome is that
Yeah.
forgiveness.
Yeah.
I've always said, I don't remember where this quote came from, but it was, I will forgive you, but I will never forget
Yes.
XYZ. But
Hmm.
it's the forgiveness, it's the piece of letting that piece go, even though it might be little t trauma, big trauma,
Hmm.
it's trying to forgive yourself.
Yeah, it took me a long time to get there because I've had three miscarriages and a stillborn in my 20s and my 30s. And it
I'm
took
so
me,
sorry.
thank you. It took me when I was like 40, 41, and I was doing that dark night of the soul shadow work.
Yeah.
That's when it took me I gave myself permission to mourn the loss of my children because I never did it
Mm,
before because I would mentally and spiritually dissociate. I would just go to
yeah.
Narnia and come back later. I gave
Right.
myself permission to like really mourn the loss of my babies that I did not have and be
Mhm.
able to sit well with it and say, you weren't a bad mother when you were pregnant with your children. This is
Yeah.
something that has to happen for you to live the life that you have now because it's going to make an impact and it's going to be purposeful for other women who may have experienced the same thing too. You can be a beacon of light and hope for those women. I had a partial hysterectomy when I was 41 years old. The doctor
Mhm.
was like, "Well, the fibroid came back and we're gonna have to do a hysterectomy." I was like, "Take the bitch out. Me and her don't have no relationship. I don't talk about this." We
Yeah.
tried couples counseling, therapy. Me and her, we don't have nothing. So the next day I went home from the doctor's office. I wrote a letter to my uterus and I thanked her for her service. I thanked
Mm,
her for allowing me to feel my babies in my belly, even though they didn't survive. I thanked
yeah.
her for wreaking havoc on my goddamn life. I
Yeah.
wrote I burned it and I created a YouTube video for any woman who was going to experience a partial or full hysterectomy that it doesn't make them less than a woman. You're still a woman despite
Yeah.
those those parts. And so the
Right.
video's still up there on YouTube.
Okay.
Sometimes women will come to me and be like, "Well, hey, how were you able to handle this and handle that?" I would send them the video.
Beautiful. Your story is so powerful, Dillis. Where can everybody find you in your book?
Sure. So my book is on Amazon, and also I have my link on Facebook if you wanted to get an autographed copy to do so.
Mm,
Well, I prefer for you to get an autographed copy because when do you get an opportunity to get an autographed copy from an author? Normally, when you get
mhm.
books on Amazon, it's just a book, but I always like to put a little private message of inspiration and motivation. So I'm on
Beautiful.
Facebook and my Substack, which is dillis.substack.com. That's where you can find all of my stuff.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Dillis, for coming on the show today. This is a
Thank
beautiful
you.
conversation.
Thank you for having
But,
me, Christine. Thank you so much for what you're doing.
thank you, thank you. Lovely souls, have a beautiful, blessed day.